It is the resident gardener type from Medarot 3 that has been the OG when it comes to nursing passive aggression and passive boosts as long as she remains on the field. It is GRW00 Riza, with a kit of Plant Up, Trap Clear, Plant Trap, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Continuous P, which passively buffs her speed every turn an action is completed. Now, Riza is most certainly not to be confused with Riza 2, which is basically the exact same model physically, albeit green and red instead of green and pink, but also sporting a very slightly different kit that changes how she behaves. Riza, of course being the original model, is the one that actually stemmed where the retool came from, and when it comes to nursing passive aggression or passive plants on the field, you really can't get much better than what she brings to the table. Plant Up is considered a special skill and the second instance of it in existence in Medarot S currently, the first instance of it being of course Riza 2, which first introduced it. Is a special skill that upon activation will reset the amount of charges that a plant or trap has back to its maximum value, if not adding a +1 to it. Which means that if a plant or trap is ready to expire, she can use Plant Up to essentially recharge it and reset it, so that it can keep going just a little bit longer before it has to be manually reset the normal way. And given that it is a special skill, this means that there is no metal mastery required to use it. Any metal, any nature, any type can use it with no drop in its performance across the board. Trap Clear is a healing skill that is it's considered a healing skill, but is one of the more aggressive ones, essentially, as you can put it. As simply explained, upon using Trap Clear, any negative traps that are placed on the field against herself or her allies on your side of the field are now considered nullified and removed. This means if it's disturbance, shoot trap, defense trap, head trap, anything that will deal passive damage over time, this essentially will become the bane of every trapper in existence. Looking specifically at models like, say, Bad Hacker, who excels in that kind of combat. Left Arm of Plant Trap is a setup-based skill that, upon use, will set a trap on the field geared toward plant and setup users exclusively. This means, again, setup users or trappers like Bad Hacker that try to set traps against the enemy side of the field will now find themselves punished for using traps with some passive-aggressive damage to deal to them, and try to serve as a deterrent to keep them from setting traps to begin with in order to keep their HP high. Biped Legs means that she has decently good coverage across most terrains, as Biped Legs have usually one of the better well-rounded leg types when it comes to terrain matching, and as expected of an event reward that pretty much anyone can earn upon her release, she is a model that has decently well-rounded stats despite being incredibly niche for what she brings to the field. However, she is also, as expected of a female type like her, relatively squishy as well, a head HP of 2750, right arm of 2700 HP, left at 2400, and legs at 3450. She's definitely going to be very squishy on the field, as mentioned, as this does mean she will need just a little bit of amount of protection to ensure that nothing really hurts her or harms her, so that she can keep her role going as the resident, gardener of the party to keep and nurse any traps or plants on the field while in play. Her leg stats are honestly pretty well rounded as expected of a biped leg, especially as an event reward one no less, with a base mobility of 707, kind of in that nice little mid-range where you really want bipeds to sit. Not super great, but also not terrible either, but that is also compounded by Continuous P, which means that for every action completed, she will get progressively faster, and this is also excluding any extra bonuses such as terrain matching or Medarot bonuses to boost us even higher. The evade of 900 isn't too shabby either, kind of expected for a nice well-rounded leg type. Melee resist of 938 and a shoot resist of 900, again, decently well-rounded in that nice little mid-range zone. Generally, the closer to 1000 you are, the better when it comes to your resist stats, but staying within the low 900s still isn't too bad either across the board. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate her a pretty flat 5 out of 10. Given that even though Continuous P on biped legs with rounded stats is definitely very tempting, she is a very niche model when it comes to what she brings to the field. And if the enemy is not using any kind of setup or traps at all, that's kind of it. There's really no reason for her to be on the field if there's nothing for her to nurse or remove while she's on it. And that also makes it very hard for to use her effectively if even the enemy isn't trying to use traps or plants at all, because usually just by being there, the enemy will try not to use them in favor of trying to keep their HP high and not proc her. For mixed parts, though, I have to rate her just a hair higher at about a 5.5 out of 10, given that even though Plant Up, Trap Clear, and Plant Trap as a set synergizes well with each other, albeit very niche, mixing the parts up will actually give you just a little bit more variety. Trap Clear will be very, very handy for anyone that is trying to use Disturbance against you, especially any shielders or Metaforce nukers. Plant Up if you do find yourself in need of using a Trapper or Planter on your team, but the legs are probably going to be the biggest thing on her that you're going to want to hold on to and shoot for, if anything. Because even if it does take a few more resources than normal to cap these at 5-star, the stats aren't terrible. It is a pretty well-rounded female leg, and the leg ability of Continuous P is also really good too, as it means that every turn an action is completed, she gets progressively faster and makes it easier for her to do more actions.